welcome back. Today we're gonna do a few chops. I don't know how far we get. We're gonna do the brakes, got new discs and pads, and we need to replace the panhard rod, which is the track rod, which is this one here, this one behind, that one. It's stuck up here. The problem is that bulge, that ball joint here is completely worn out, and the front axle is moving from side to side, and you don't want that because it drives like shit. So the problem is this fucking bolt here. This tab connects to a nut which is hidden behind, and knowing the Jeep fairly well, it's gonna be rusted in. So if we really lucky, we could manage to break it. I think it's not gonna move. No way. The bolt is really rusty. So here we got new brake discs. The first one is already fitted. It's easy. Just the two bolts of the calipers. Take it out, clean it, put a new disc on. Make sure you clean the surface with some alcohol or so. There's always a bit of grease on it. Easy job. When you wind back the calipers, you're going to push the calipers back in. Always watch your fluid level, and if it's too much, just suck it out, because you don't want it overflowing. Alright, you can use whatever you have, just wind it back to get it flush, and then put the pads in. The discs are pretty worn. We machined them once, so we can't do it anymore, because otherwise we are below the minimum thickness. And look at that, that's pretty worn. I heard it grinding, so it was time. Again, I need to get them flush. I need to machine another maybe 3 millimeters off, and that will bring me below the minimum thickness, so it's not an option. The whole set was, I think, 47 pounds delivered. That's about $70, 75 maybe. So it's a no-brainer. Set discs and pads for that money. We just replace it, because it's a safety related device, so we don't want to struggle with brakes because it's an auto, and it's a bit hard on the brakes, and my driving style doesn't help either. Alright, let's fit the other ones, and then we'll tackle that track rod eventually. I soaked the bolt and it doesn't move, so it's probably a job for the plasma cutter. We'll see. These are the others. That's the other end, and two bolts here, another two down here. That they should come up easily, because you're not gonna get there to get that out. So it's probably another plasma cutter job. Yeah, we need to think what we're gonna do here. Where is that oil coming? I'm losing ATF here somewhere. I just don't know where it's coming from. Only a tiny little bit, but it's always moist here. Anyway, let's do the brakes, and then we'll see what we can do with the other thing. The weather doesn't look very promising, so we might not do it today. When I fit new pads, I always ease the edges a little bit. It's not so hard in your knuckles here, because they have a tendency to walk this way. You can see that gap here. They're gonna walk in, so that's moving, and if you break the edge, it's moving easier. The problem is that otherwise your brakes are binding, and I always break the edges of the new pads as well. It helps them to ease in a little bit more. But what you want is a relatively flat surface here, because that's pushing against your knuckle. There's quite a bit of force on it, so yeah, it helps a little bit. Make sure your caliper pins are moving. If they don't, take it apart and clean it. It's just a pin. Take the rubber out, pull it out. Anyway, let's fit the new pads here. On these ones, the the pin, which is a location pin, was a bit too much. There was a burr or something like that, and I had trouble to get him in on the other side. So just file around, make sure it slips in easy. Put the round one in first, and then the other one should fit. Put some copper grease on the back, and then fit it. Before you put your disc on, make sure this surface is squeaky clean. Put a light dab of grease on, so it doesn't bind here when the disc goes on. It's very important that there is no rust, no dirt, because otherwise your brake disc is wobbling, and you don't want that, because that makes your tire wobbling. Okay, let's clean this. That's a very good example. It's full of this anti-rust stuff. If you leave that on, you will trash your brake pads pretty quickly, because it's just, yeah, it's grease. You don't want that on the brakes. Alright, let's clean it up. I just use some alcohol, and it usually comes off quite easy. Just make it clean. A tiny little bit doesn't matter, because it's it will come off, but that much is no good. Once you're finished, push your brake pedal a few times until you feel resistance, and then check your level. Apparently this is too much, so we're going to suck something out here. I may need two hands for that. I just use one of these suckers here. And that's it. So now we're top level, and it's gonna go down a little bit because we obviously breaking the thing in, so that's good for now. And dispose that stuff. You don't want to reuse it because it's old and moist and whatever. Alright, this one done. Put some penetration oil on these bolts and see if they move. I may just do the bolts today on this side to make sure they're all moving. Once I'm sure this is moving, I can actually get there without removing the wheels again, because I'm not going to do it today. It's getting late, and if we turn the steering fully to the left, we can get there actually. It's just that freaking bolt here. It doesn't move at all. I tried it with a long breaker bar, and it's not moving. It's just jamming the nut. It's just jamming the socket. That's all it does. Yeah, it's gonna be a plasma cutter job, I think. That's what it looks like. We'll come back on that. Anyway, brake's done. We need to do the oil filter on the oil. Yeah, because we drained the oil in the meantime. Do the oil filter as well. I change the filter every time I change the oil, because it's a rather small filter for that engine. So I'd rather do it more often. They are really cheap, so there's no point of saving money on that. Keeps your engine healthy. I'm pleasantly surprised they came out with the impact. So we just put a little bit of copper grease on, put it back on, so we can actually reach there with a socket. I just used the impact, and it was working fine. It had a bit of resistance, but it came out, so that's good. So we need to tackle the bottom ones, just to make them moving. We got another job to do, which is this control arm. The bushes are worn. I have a new one, but it's the same as on the other side. That bolt doesn't go through. It's rusted in. So that's gonna be another one at some time. It's still okay, but the rubber is really soft and deteriorated. They are 22 years old. They're probably the first ones that no one ever changed them. So the other ones are up here. Yeah, I know it's probably not visible. Too much brightness here. That's the bracket, and they are mounted on this place here. So while we're here, we probably could do the engine mount. We'll see. Okay, so this is moving. Those are not my concern, because they should be accessible from the top. They should be accessible from the top. Yeah, there are. Well, a steering column is in the way a little bit, but they're down here, just in front of the engine mount. They look okay, so at least we can get this with some brute force attack with the breaker bar. It's not moving at all, and I think it's rusted into the bushing. So the plan is to cut the whole thing away, because you can't get to the back to get this stupid nut out. What a pain. It's just stupid. Anyway, that's gonna do it. Oh, we've done the brakes at least. We can use the car tomorrow. Yeah, there's a lot to do here. The only solution is being brutal. As with many of these things, just get a plasma cutter and cut it away. Well, we think about it. At least the other side is moving, so we know that's gonna move. The problem is that the thing sits. It's a ball joint, and I think it's a taper which sits in that bracket, and you're not gonna get it out in situ. There's no way, absolutely not. So we rather take the whole bracket out and do that on the bench. It makes life a lot easier. It's just this side which needs to get out. The problem is there is absolutely no way to get this out, which is a bit of a pain. So that's the new one. It's an aftermarket one, it's from Crown, and that's how it fits. And that's the bushing. The bolt is actually stuck in the bushing, so you can't turn the bolt. As with most of these, the bolts are just rusted in. And on the other side, you got that bolt joint, which has a taper here. There's a taper here, and you're not gonna get that out. So that's the reason why we're gonna take the whole bracket off. Yeah, you might notice this is a right-hand drive. So if you got a left-hand drive, everything is the other way around. And obviously that track bar is different on right-hand, left-hand drives. For the left-hand drive, it costs half the money. I don't know why. But there's no way that the bend is in the other direction. So the bolt joint would be upside down. It's not gonna work. Alright, we need to find a solution for that bolt. Welcome back. So we're making a drill jig for our panhard rod for our track bar. What we do is we use a 9/16 socket, and we put the bolt the other way around and a nut on the back. The head fits perfectly. I don't know what the bolt that is. We skim that off and center drill it and drill through. So that will be our drill jig, and then we pound that socket onto the old bolt. So the other bolt is here, and that's going to be cut off a little bit, and then we'll drill through our jig, so we know we're straight, because otherwise we're not going to get it done. So that's the idea. Hopefully it works, we'll see. Yeah, just need to drill that bolt out, shorten it first and then drill it. So we faced it off, and we just center drill it, and then we drill it through with I think 4mm or so. That's enough. So let's get a 4mm drill it through.
should be almost full, I think. There we go. Yeah. Let's see where we're at. Because this end sits on the nut, or this end sits on the bolt, so that's the most important one. And looking good. So we use the same drill through, and that gives us enough guidance to drill that right. So that's how it sits in the socket. That goes on the bolt. We put a nut on the back so it's straight. We hammer that on, and then we drill through that thing. Hopefully we get it centered. The center is not the problem, it's actually drilling straight is the problem, because we want to drill the bolt out as straight as possible, otherwise we're not going to hit the end. We cannot get to the end with anything, angle grinder, whatever, hacksaw. There's no way. You just can't get there. So we have to hook the material out until the end falls off. Actually, that's the plan. Hopefully the plan works out. The front is easy, but the bolt doesn't move. It's rusted into the bushing as well, so that's the way we're gonna do it. Hopefully it works. So that's the new track bar. We got a part of the frame here, a part of the frame on the back. We got a nut on the back which we cannot access. There's no way to get there. And our jig goes here. And it's not a 5/16, it's something else, so I can pound it on. Otherwise I just use the clamp and clamp it on. And then we'll basically drill through that hole. Should give us a straight guidance, probably about half in. We take that off and drill through, and then we get bigger and bigger until the whole thing falls out. Because the other problem is that the bolt is actually rusted into that bushing here, so that's not moving either. So that's the principle. We don't know if it works. It should. That's the only plan I have for now. I don't have a plan B. Well, the plan B is plasma cutter. I try to avoid that. Anyway, stay tuned for part 2. It's gonna come as soon as the weather is okay, probably tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Until next time.